The UCLA International Institute is honored to have as our keynote speaker tonight the Honorable Howard Berman, Senior Advisor at the law firm Covington & Burling, and a former congressman who represented the San Fernando Valley and adjacent areas in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1983 to 2013. Today, he's one of 15 members of the committee charged with drafting the Democratic Party platform in preparation for the party's July 2016 convention in Philadelphia. Sounds like a rather busy couple of months ahead of you. In truth, the Institute could not have a more relevant or important speaker for its commencement this evening. Not only is Mr. Berman a Bruin through and through, but international relations have played a significant role in both his education and his extensive career. It's with great pleasure that we welcome Mr. Berman back to UCLA, where he completed in quick succession both a bachelor's degree and interdisciplinary degree, as ours this evening, which was in international relations as well as a law degree. While an undergraduate, Berman was already active in Bruin Democrats, where he met and befriended another future California congressman from the area, Henry Waxman. Together they created the Los Angeles County Young Democrats. Did I mention he's a native Angelino? After completing his degrees at UCLA, Berman first worked as a volunteer for VISTA, the domestic version of the Peace Corps, before practicing law in Los Angeles for 6 years, specializing in labor relations. In 1972, he was elected to the California State Assembly, where he served for 10 years. During his years there, he became the youngest person to hold the post of Assembly Majority Leader, a post that he held for 6 years. Mr. Berman was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1982 and spent the next 30 years working diligently for his district, the state, and the nation. One issue for which he became particularly known was copyright protection, especially regarding the U.S. entertainment industry. While a congressman, Berman served as a member of the Judiciary, Ethics, and Foreign Affairs Committees, chairing the latter from 2008 to 2011. Over time, he became one of Congress's leading experts on international affairs. Politico has observed that his temperament and clear-eyed analysis have led presidents to entrust him as an emissary to foreign capitals and cultivate a network of officials around the globe who solicit his counsel. No wonder Covington & Burling tapped him as a senior advisor, in which capacity he currently advises clients on a wide range of foreign and domestic matters. At present, he also serves on the boards of the Asia Foundation, the National Democratic Institute, the Immigration Task Force of the Bipartisan Policy Center, and the Pacific Council on International Policy. When he has described himself, Berman has been known to say that he is the workhorse, not the show horse. I guess appropriate on the day of the Pimlico, is that right? So today. Certainly that description of the workhorse and not the show horse is in keeping with his long-standing practicing of allying himself with others traditionally shut out of the ruling elite. And he has acted as a champion of historically underrepresented peoples. It should come as no surprise then that he received the first annual Farm Worker Justice Award in the year 2000. In 40 years as a politician, however, Congressman Berman never forgot UCLA. He's always been open to issues of higher education, including those of international education, and he was a supporter of both the DREAM Act and the Title VI program, which is very important to us. He stayed in touch with many people here at UCLA, and over the years he's generally helped his alma mater gain funds for the International Institute and other important programs on campus. Nor did UCLA forget him, conferring on him the Alumni Association's Public Service Award in 1997 and the School of Law's Alumni of the Year in 1999 in the category of professional achievement. This is just, of course, a cite, but a couple of moments of recognition that Howard's received here at UCLA. He remains a genuine Bruin basketball fan, even during these tough times, frequently attending games with another UCLA alum, former County Supervisor Zev Yaroslavsky. Mr. Berman's going to tell you his own story, which I'm confident will inspire our newly minted graduates to pursue equally creative and enduring professional lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the Honorable Howard Berman.
Well, thank you very much. That was a better introduction than I got when I was looking for votes. And believe it or not, after all those years in politics, this is the first time I've ever been a commencement speaker. In the most recent issue just released of Time magazine, American pollster Frank Luntz asked the question, a question which will next be posed in the election 2 weeks from today, when the voters of the United Kingdom vote on leaving the European Union. He states the question this way: do hardworking, tax-paying citizens in the developed world fundamentally trust or reject a half-century of globalization, of integration, and innovation? Or is this the time for a rethinking and a redrawing of our political and economic systems from the ground up? American voters will address much the same question in November, with an American slant. Is this the time to revisit and reject the proposition that America is best served by exercising global leadership through engagement, diplomacy, direct and multilateral development assistance, reducing trade barriers, and at times wisely and at times not so wisely, utilizing military force far from home? Or is this the time to retreat to a neo-isolationist, American-first form of nationalism? If I go any further on this course, I will be getting into politics, and I wouldn't want to do that. So these are fascinating and important questions, but not the ones I'm going to address this evening. Rather, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about a personal story, how my rather impulsive decision to pursue what was then an interdisciplinary major in international relations 55 years ago opened up a world to me that I had not known in a way that I did not and could not possibly have anticipated at the time. In my undergraduate years, 1959 to 1962, maybe I will be speaking more to the grandparents who are here than anybody else, the Cold War and the threat of nuclear war were my framework for viewing the world. So I chose Russian as a language to learn and focused on courses in Soviet government and Soviet foreign policy. While I could never quite get the hang of conversational Russian, I would sneak off to a small bookstore called the Progressive Bookstore near downtown. I think everyone there was either a party member, a fellow traveler, or an intelligence agent, in order to buy Pravda. Not because I thought it was anything other than propaganda, but because it was much easier to read with a Russian-English dictionary than Dostoevsky. I toyed with the idea of pursuing a career in the Foreign Service, possessed with the romantic notion of being a negotiator of US-Soviet arms control treaties. I still recall the excitement I felt at the completion and the ratification in 1962 of the Atmospheric Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. During my senior year, because of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the threat of a US-Soviet nuclear confrontation became very real. And I attended nearly daily rallies and rushed home to follow developments on television. For me, its peaceful resolution became a wonderful example of how skillful diplomacy could resolve peacefully a crisis of enormous proportions. I often wondered later, as a labor lawyer, as a state legislator, and even as a member of Congress, what benefit those years of Russian language instruction would ever have for me. As you might expect, I had forgotten nearly all my vocabulary. But in 1993, President Clinton asked a bipartisan group of congressional leaders and members interested in foreign policy to travel to Russia and Ukraine in order to lay a foundation for a significant increase in foreign assistance to Russia, the other republics of the former Soviet Union, and Eastern Europe. Those were heady days. The Soviet Union had broken up. The Cold War was over. The communist ideology had been thoroughly discredited. And Boris Yeltsin, president of the Russian Republic, seemed committed to leading a democratic and free market Russia. One of our last meetings on that trip was with the vice president of the Russian Republic, a former Soviet general who led forces during the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. The meeting went on and on. Everything had to be translated, both ways. The room was stuffy, and I was getting quite bored. My eyes wandered, and I saw a large map on the far wall in Russian with the Cyrillic words, Soyuz Sovietsky Socialisticheskaya Republika, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Smartass that I was, I raised my hand and asked, "You're Vice President of Russia. Why do you have a map of the Soviet Union on the wall?" I imagined he would say, "Give me a break. We're broke. We don't have money for new maps." That wasn't his answer. Pounding the table, he replied quite forcefully, "The inevitable forces of history, military necessity, culture, and economics will bring the empire back together." The session ended right then, and our entire delegation left with a sense of the formidable difficulties that still remained in U.S.-Russia relations. And all because I could still read the Cyrillic alphabet. The actions and speeches of Vladimir Putin in recent years still remind me of that meeting and of the benefits of taking Russian at UCLA. When I was elected to Congress, I sought and served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, as was mentioned, for my entire 30-year tenure, the last 5 years as the chairman and ranking member of that committee. I've had an opportunity, an unbelievable opportunity, to work with foreign affairs officials in both parties, meet and develop relationships with a number of foreign officials, meet and get to know leaders of civil society around the world, brave dissidents, fighters for human rights abroad, and some of the top academics at foreign-based think tanks. I've had the opportunity to have some imprint on the formulation and implementation of those policies through legislation and advocacy. It has been a rewarding and amazing experience. And when I know for sure, in a way that I never thought possible at the time, was that my interest and my role in those issues were formed here at UCLA and shaped by the major that I chose here, international relations. So, just to close, I know that most of you are too smart to seek to get involved in foreign affairs and international issues by running for office. But there are so many ways to pursue that interest, important and useful ways, whether it is in the Foreign Service or in other government agencies, the USAID, whether it is working in NGOs or if you're going back to a home country in your own government, advocacy groups, human rights groups, whether it is as a career or as an avocation. Getting involved in something that's bigger than you and has impacts on the future of our planet, I think you'll find to be a very exciting and important experience. I congratulate all of you. I wish you the very best in the future, and to the families who are probably even more excited by this day than the graduates, the very best to you. Thank you very much for inviting me.